So we're going to give everyone a couple of minutes just to sign in and get ready. And then we're going to get going. I'm sure you're all eager to hear more about this prize than about the presentation today. But let's have fun and enjoy a great day. So as usual, if there are any of our brokers that are coming on that would like to put on your microphones quickly and give a shout out, tell us where you're from, that would be great. And we're going to get going in a couple of minutes.
Hi Jason, Brian, Neil, and Marsh, how's it?
iTOO Prize Indemnity.
How's it, Brian?
Yesterday.
No.
Hi Jay, keep well, thanks again.
This weekend getaway.
Hi Justin, Roger from NFB in East London.
I haven't even looked at that. I'm too busy to even do that kind of stuff.
Justin, it's time you came and bought me a beer in Cape Town. It's Brian Gombal.
How's it going? So, there are a couple of you with your microphones on talking in the background. So could I just ask you all that if you're going to say how's it, then say hi and then turn your microphone off. That would be great.
Hi Justin, Wayne from First International.
Great stuff. Good to have you with us. I see we've got Roger Williams from East London. Great to have you with us.
Justin, nice to see you again.
Good stuff. Lovely to have you here with us. We're getting lots of messages. We have 225 people on so far. So let's give it a few minutes for everyone to get on, and then we're going to get going. And this is going to be a really fun and informal presentation today. So just some feedback. Can you hear me all clearly and perfectly? Can you give me some feedback?
Yes, Justin, we can hear you and see you.
Yes.
Am I looking good as ever? No answer, Tove.
As always, Justin. I was just unmuting myself, as always.
Okay, I had to remind you there. So we're going to give it a few more minutes. We've got a lot of people joining in. I wonder why. It's as I said to Greg Dillon earlier, I said, don't let your ego get out of hand, because I'm sure it's not only hundreds of people coming in to look at Greg's face on the screen. I'm sure something has to do with the prize that we have up for grabs today. But we're going to have a lot of fun, and I'm really excited to hear for you to hear from our experts, Greg Dillon and Melita Thurling. And this is going to be a really interesting discussion today. So before we get going, is there anyone else that would like to say a quick shout out and say hi? Put your microphone on and do so, and we're going to get going in a couple of minutes.
Morning, Justin, Melita, Greg.
Hey, Gordon.
Hello, Gordon.
How you doing?
Morning.
How are you doing?
Gordon, morning.
Well, I'm looking forward to my weekend in Maritaba. Thank you very much.
We're not covering the cost of the flight from London, though. That wasn't part of the
deal. Enjoy it. I'm looking forward to it. Thanks, guys.
Good stuff. It's going to be a great session. Lovely to have you with us. Hearing from Gordon always reminds me that we do have a lot of international guests that join these webinars. So is there anyone else from out of South Africa? It would be lovely to hear from you. Do we have anyone from else from the UK or from Spain, or anyone from the African countries outside of South Africa? It would be great to hear from you. Anyone want to say hi?
How's it, Justin? Rowan here from Bots.
Hello, Rowan. How are things in Botswana?
All good, can't complain.
Great stuff. Lovely to have you listening in. Eh? I know that you're a lover of the bush, Rowan, so are you holding thumbs for the prize?
I really am.
Okay, well, it is open to iTOO people as well and our brokers, so I'm holding thumbs for you as well. Okay, we have about 270 people on. We're going to give it a few more minutes and then let's get going, because we've got a lot to cover today. And I know that all of you are going to be staying on right until the end when we announce the results of this Prize Indemnity competition. So Melita and Greg, I think we're ready to get going. Are you guys ready to kick off? Are you all ready and sorted?
Yes.
Yeah, ready to go. Thanks.
Good stuff. And can we have a quick hello from Janine? You don't need to put your video on, but it'll be great to hear from you. Are you ready and sorted?
I hope so.
Great stuff. So let's get going, everyone. I think it's just after 10 and it's going to be a really interesting session today. So let's get right into the presentation. I would like to say a big thank you. We've got a bit of a team effort today. So today we have Janine Lamprecht, who is our events liability underwriter. and she is driving the presentation and has spent a lot of time working on this presentation. So Janine, good to have you on the Prize Indemnity team today, and thank you. And then we have our underwriting experts in Prize Indemnity, Melita Thurling, who heads up our general liability and a few other of our specialist areas, one of which is our events and sports and entertainment. And then we have Greg Dillon, who is our resident sporting fanatic and expert, and really leads the this business of Prize Indemnity, sports and entertainment. So Greg, good to have you on with us as well. And you're going to be hearing most of the time from Greg and Melita. A big welcome to all of our brokers. We have a few of our reinsurance partners on today, and a particular welcome to all of our brokers from around the country and from out of South Africa. It's really good. We've got about 280 people listening in, which is a fantastic turnout. So let's get right into it. So first of all, about Prize Indemnity. And as I mentioned, we're going to be hearing from Greg and Melita, our experts, and they're going to do this in a bit of an informal way, in the form of a bit of a question and answer session. Janine, if you could just go back to the first slide. I want to talk a little bit about the prize, if you can. Could you go back one slide, Janine?
That is the first slide.
Perfect. Great stuff. So I think just to use an example we thought was probably the best way to illustrate how Prize Indemnity works. So to show you all how exciting and interesting Prize Indemnity can be as a way to actually creatively market and promote either a sports event, an event, or even a business product, we decided to use Prize Indemnity to promote this iTuesday event. And the thing for me that I love about Prize Indemnity, this is the one form of insurance when people claim it's not really a negative thing. It's not really a negative process or emotion. When people claim in Prize Indemnity, it's for us as insurers, it's a little bit of a bittersweet, because it's great to be able to give away a nice prize, but we also know then we're in for a potential claim. And today, iTOO is on the line for a potential claim of this beautiful lodge. So the prize that we've put up today to illustrate Prize Indemnity is 2 nights stay for 2 people at this beautiful lodge, Marataba Lodge, which is in the Game Reserve. It's absolutely incredible. I would like to say a big thank you for Iconic Africa. They're a boutique travel agency that specializes in putting these trips together for people. So they've kindly helped us arrange this prize. I must emphasize that iTOO are the insurer for if this prize wins. So we have treated this as a normal prize. And if someone wins the prize today, iTOO will be paying it as a claim. So that's the prize. Janine, if you can go on to the next slide, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit about how this prize works. Janine, are you there? Okay, great stuff. Tove, can you hear me clearly? I think my internet is a little bit shaky. So can
Yes,
you hear
we
me,
can hear you,
Tove?
Justin.
Great stuff. Okay, so how it works. So what we did, if all of you read the invitation clearly, what we did is we asked you to register for this talk today at some time between 8 a.m. and 5 p.m. yesterday. And what we then did is we actually selected a 5-minute window during that day. And if anyone registered during that 5-minute window, then they would be eligible to win the prize. What we also said, if more than 2 people, more than 1 person registered during this time, it would go to a count out, and we would look at who has attended the most iTuesday sessions. And we're going to be sharing the results of this competition at the end of the presentation. But I think just to use this to highlight some of the objectives of Prize Indemnity. First of all, I think it's used to create a little bit of a buzz around an event. And certainly we've got a fantastic attendance today, probably more than we would have had for this type of a topic. It's been on social media, it's been talked about, and certainly this prize that we've put up today has created a little bit of a buzz around this event. We've also used it to encourage more people to register and join this this talk today, this iTuesday today. And because one of the conditions of the prize is you have to be on the presentation at the end, we're also using this Prize Indemnity to encourage people to listen for the whole duration of this presentation. And I hope this gives you a little bit of an example about how any type of business could use Prize Indemnity to promote their products or their services. We've also worked, and then what we did is we worked out on average about 250 people join our Tuesday seminars. We worked out how many minutes there are in a day and how many people would likely be entering and registering yesterday. And on that, we worked out a probability.
Hello?
To give you an idea, our underwriting expert Melita has worked out a premium, and the premium to insure a risk just like this for the probability that we've done would probably cost about 1,600 Rand in premium. So I think that you'll all agree that for 1,600 Rand, on top of the costs of organizing an event like this or paying for a speaker, certainly is worth it, I think, with the buzz that having this prize available has created. So that's a little bit about the prize. We've got some clear rules in place. Let's hear now from Greg Dillon and Melita Thurling. And at the end of the presentation, we will be announcing the results of the prize, and let's hold thumbs that someone has actually won it. So over to you, Greg and Melita. I'm going to turn off and look forward to listening a little bit more about this type of insurance.
Right, thank you so much, Justin, and thanks for the introduction. And a huge thank you to all of our brokers and our friends from across Southern Africa and the rest of the world for joining this fun and rather different session of our Tuesdays. And a big good luck to everyone for the prize. All right, so let's get into it. Melita, perhaps briefly describe to us what is the broad understanding of prize indemnity insurance.
Thanks, Greg. So prize indemnity is an indemnity insurance for a promotion or a competition where the participants are offered the chance to win a prize. It gives companies the ability to offer promotions with large attractive prizes while transferring the substantial financial risk to an insurer. And more importantly, as the company, promoter or sponsor transfers the risk to the insurer, if someone should actually win the prize or win the competition and the chance materializes that we've calculated, they don't actually have to pay out. They only pay the premium, which hopefully, as Justin has pointed out, is a small fraction of the value of the prize. It's not just about risk transfer though. It can also boost sales. And in fact, one hopes that you're not just looking at the risk transfer aspect, you're trying to get a lot more buzz around the actual competition itself and kick up your turnover. It creates a promotional opportunity. It can potentially give an insured a competitive advantage. It piques interest in a unique or innovative concept or idea. And hopefully it also, as a side issue, enhances your customer's database.
Which we're seeing today has worked quite nicely. So
yeah.
How does it work? I mean, just tell us really in practice how it actually goes about working.
Sure. So prize indemnity protects the prize winner by guaranteeing that they'll receive the promised prize. Now, they could, of course, rely on whoever the promoter is of the competition, but if there's an insurer that's committed to backing up the actual competition, it helps. It also, as I've said, protects the insured by paying out the prize on their behalf. So they can relax and enjoy the boost in the sales or the buzz created by the competition. Unlike the underwriters, like you and I, Greg and Janine, who sit there biting our fingernails, waiting for the outcome. And sometimes we're conflicted. We kind of hope, if it's something to do with the Springboks winning, for instance, we hope the Springboks will win, but we kind of hope that they won't win because then we might have to pay out on one of our promotions. So the insured's contests, terms and conditions are actually really important and they need to be very clear. And the insured will need to abide by those terms and conditions if they want to file a successful claim with the insurer. So if the rules, for instance, with the hole-in-one for specific prize say that there need to be 2 witnesses, if there's only 1 witness, it may not be good enough in terms of the competition rules and the insurer actually paying out for the claim. Obviously, we look at the whole thing, and if there's a video cam of the shot, if there's other evidence, we may well then entertain the claim. But just to be aware that those terms and conditions are really important. And a policy can also be avoided, or voided, should I say, if a participant has some sort of unfair advantage. If there's specific rules and they don't adhere to those rules, and they have some sort of unfair advantage, then potentially the insurer may not pay out. Of course, if the thing is televised or what have you, there may be so much hype and celebration that the sponsor or the insured may be very reluctant not to pay over as a result of some sort of technicality because of the brand damage. And in that case, there'll obviously be a discussion between the insured and the insurer.
Yeah, exactly. It becomes a bit of a catch-22, doesn't it? So, okay, so let's step over onto our side of the fence then. how is prize indemnity treated in the hands of the insurer? In other words, how do we go about rating it? We spoke, Justin spoke a little bit about that, but in your words, how do you rate something like this?
Sure. So we typically use statistical models and rely on probabilities to calculate the odds of a payout. And this will vary by event. I mean, competitions requiring an element of skill, such as a hole-in-one, will be very different to perhaps a pure probability type competition like an envelope pick or a roulette spin. They'll have different odds of winning. With skill-based competitions, it's actually much harder to rate because you don't have the pure probabilities that you're able to work out. And so as an insurer, we'd have to rely quite heavily on the available statistics and sometimes even betting odds, actually, which begs the question, and perhaps that's a debate for another day, the difference between insurance and gambling in this instance. So it gets quite interesting. So if you've got a whole lot of data for specific sports, then that obviously makes it a lot easier to rate those. For instance, with show jumping or horse jumping, you don't have a lot of data. And although we have actually insured a record attempt when it comes to horse jumping, sports that have more data and more statistics are better suited, something like cricket or baseball. Since not every contest will have a winner, there may be situations where we collect a premium, and in fact, we hope that this is most of the time, being the insurer, and don't have to make a payout. So in simple terms, like any insurance, we need to receive more premiums than we pay out in claims overall.
And what about, for example, the policy's coverage, the limits, do they equal the potential loss? I mean, brokers would want to understand that.
Yeah, exactly. So sure, the policy limit will equal the potential loss, meaning the value of the prize or the payout. You may have a payout where, say, for instance, there's a refund that's been promised on a purchase should a certain event happen. So yeah, typically your policy limit would equal that potential loss, the value of the prize or the payout. So our prize indemnity insurance policy premium will then depend on the actual prize value or payout and the statistical odds that someone will win.
Okay. All right. And like any good insurance product, we need some information. And so what are the details we need to collect? I'm sure everyone listening wants to know what exactly is it and what guidance can we give them?
Right. Well, we have a proposal form, which is best to fill out, but in a sort of brief way. Really what we need to know is exactly who the insured is, their details, and if they've got a website, that would be great. Obviously, the details of the event are important, the name of the event, where it's going to take place, how many people are participating, if it's around attempts, how many attempts does each participant have, or the total number of attempts that are going to be happening. We need to know the date, for how long the cover is in place, and a detailed description of the actual concept or idea, or what's actually going to happen on the day, so that we can fully understand that. We'll need the prize limit that we've just spoken about as well, which will obviously include VAT. And then we'll need to understand, is the prize an actual physical prize, a car, for instance, or is it the cash value that's going to be paid out? It's really important, though, that whatever comes back to us in the form of the proposal form, which comes via the broker, that it's understood that that will be the basis of the policy that will be issued. So like all insurance, again, it's the underlying contract between the insurer, ourselves, and the insured. So if any questions are answered fraudulently or in such a way that it's misleading or concealing any material facts or circumstances, then that could potentially render the policy void. So it's really important that we have accurate information on that proposal form.
Okay, cool. That makes sense. Thank you.
Sure. But Greg, you've been asking me a whole bunch of questions. I don't want you to get away with it, so I'm going to ask you some. How does prize indemnity work for the insured? In South African parlance, what's the chap? Or asked in another way, what is the point of this type of insurance?
Okay, I thought I was going to get away with just asking questions today. Okay, so in my opinion, I think predominantly it's a marketing tool, as we saw earlier in the way Justin described it. A marketing tool that companies can use to create a buzz around an event and entice new customers, build some kind of brand loyalty by offering this high value prize, and then obviously at very little risk to the company or the sponsor, if there's a sponsor involved, in comparison to that prize value. So in my opinion, I think often events rely, or the success of the events rely on the acceptance by the public of those events, i.e. the buy-in. and the readiness of sponsors to contribute financially to that. In other words, there must be certainty in the mind of the general public about what's being presented to them. And so I think increasingly is the common way of achieving both these goals, to hold some kind of a contest with this attractive prizes. And then they tend to wrap it with other enticing things, but there's always this very big prize, attractive prize at the end of it. So as we kind of said earlier, it's an insured promotion. And I think what it does is it creates a call to action.
Right, okay. No, cool, thanks. Are there different types of prize indemnity insurance?
Yes, there are. And I think a common misunderstanding is that some people often just refer to this as hole-in-one insurance, when really hole-in-one or competitions based on skill are one kind of prize indemnity insurance. There are others, obviously. Those are winning by chance or pure probability, I guess you could call it. And there's also then a slight derivative of that, which is incentive and performance bonuses. So let's look at competitions based on skill. Hole-in-one, is the oldest and best known type of prize indemnity of this kind, awarded in golfing circles in the event of a hole-in-one. And I think as a rule, the prize is awarded only once per tournament. If several players achieve a hole-in-one in the course of a single tournament, generally the prize goes to the first player to achieve this. So rule number one, when you're booking your next 4-ball, make sure you're at the front of the timesheet when you're teeing off. The rates, obviously, for the cover depend on the number of rounds, i.e. number of participants. A general full field on any given golf day is about 120 people. A vital and very important fact is the distance between the tee and the flagstick. In other words, the distance the ball needs to carry. It talks to difficulty, and obviously we can also look at skill levels of participants. Generally, we prefer amateurs for obvious reasons, but we can include professionals, but we would look at it slightly differently and underwrite it accordingly. I remember once being involved in a slightly unusual variation on a hole-in-one, which was an eagle on a par 5 on one of a course in the Cape, which seemed highly improbable at the time, but when the wind shifted and started blowing very strongly from the other direction, it seemed quite reachable. And I remember sitting wondering whether Lee Westwood at this case was going to make this short eagle putt, and luckily for us it lipped out. So talk about biting nails and watching things happen live around you. Also, things that have cropped up in the past few years, which are quite exciting and have been put into golf days as well, are things like putting competitions, which take place on the putting green in front of the clubhouse. It brings a lot of people to the whole process and creates a buzz and a hype. And even chipping competitions off the roof of the clubhouse into a defined either a bucket or a hole on another green. That can be verified, and people stand on the balcony and watch as it goes on. Variation on this, actually, putting competition was recently seen in a basketball event that took place in the US. Let's have a look at that. So this wasn't at a golf day specifically, but it took place at another event.
It definitely wasn't at a golf day. It's on a basketball court when it finally comes up, Greg.
Exactly.
And as you can see, they're putting for a car, so it's actually quite a nice prize.
Yeah.
I'll pretend to make the noise of the crowd, shall I?
Yeah. So you can see, I mean, it's, the chances of that were slim at best, but incredible hype and fantastic in this case, not so much for us as insurers, but definitely in the case of the corporate sponsors and the branding around that, which is fantastic. I mean, the chances of rolling a golf ball full length across a basketball court into a small hole like that are actually slim at best, but these things happen, and that's why you insure them. So you know, there's obviously other skill-based types of things which we've seen happening over the last couple of years. You know, soccer or rugby goal contests, you know, involve kicking a ball, either a soccer ball or rugby ball over or through a predetermined target. Last year, the Blue Bulls did a very nice promotion with their sponsor iTOO, and you randomly picked 3 people out of a crowd, out of the crowd at halftime, and they all had a chance to try and kick the ball into the back of a bucky. And they allowed it, you know, to roll along the ground. And then in the case of the very last kick of the season, it went into the back of the bucky and stayed there, which it had to do in terms of the rules. And there was a very nice cash prize at the end of all of that. So quite common, and we've seen a lot of this in the past, is fishing competitions. Here a participant needs to obviously catch a fish that breaks either a current South African or even in the case of world records of that selected fish, which you would think in the case of certain things is pretty impossible. But we have seen a little bit of fraud in these in the past, which, you know, has given them a bit of a bad rap. And the guys have obviously manipulated the weight of the fish and things like that, which, you know, has made it quite difficult. More recently, we were approached on a nice cricket event, which was a request for a big prize, and they were toying with R1 million for this one, to cover the possibility of a batsman achieving or hitting a sequence of 5 consecutive sequences of 4 666 and the concept tied into the idea of former President Mandela's iconic prison number whilst on Robben Island, and it formed part of the Solidarity Cup. So here, what was interesting was that this was an entirely new concept, 3 teams, a cricket game. They called it 3T. And because we hadn't seen this before in the format that they had wanted it or was put on, we had a couple of quite unusual and important underwriting criteria to consider. So importantly here, they limited the number of players. And so there was only 6 fielders. There was a bowler and a wicketkeeper, so a total of 8 players. And my first question was, well, is it a reduced field, smaller field, or full-size field? So full-size field meant, yes, difficult, more, you know, to hit the 6, but less fielders, easier to hit the 4. And so we had to start thinking, you know, a little bit broader about this. The other thing was, well, who is it and who's playing? So in this case, it was all the Protea players who'd been in lockdown. So they weren't in form, but they had, you know, potential there for, obviously, I mean, guys like AB de Villiers, in my opinion, is never out of form. So we had to be cognizant of that fact as well. Yeah, it was an interesting concept. And although we did give them terms, they didn't elect to go for it. So, you know, and you can see from this sequence of photos, which I took actually with my phone off the television, that they came quite close. I mean, one chap just missed out on it. And then the other one, Pretorius, had a, you know, a sequence of 664, 264 and 1 over, which was phenomenal. But it could have easily have been, you know, something that would have won the prize. And then, you know, we've seen from some of our partners in the international circles, you know, tennis tournament, for example, with $1 million up for grabs in the 2006 US Open in Flushing Meadows. There, they randomly picked someone out of a group who had to serve a ball onto a little logo on the far side of the net and potentially could win $1 million. And then if they missed that, they had another chance for 100,000. And what they did here is, although there was no winner, they actually self-insured $10,000 and gave the participant 4 courtside tickets to the women's singles semi-finals the next day. So they didn't leave the person empty-handed, which was nice. So then obviously there's things, as I spoke about earlier, winning by chance or pure probability. That's another form of prize indemnity. You know, these type of events are generally associated with advertising campaigns in which the possibility of winning a prize is used as a means of drawing the public in. In the course of time, a number of different forms of these have obviously developed over, you know, as people have got more creative. So safe combination type of contests where a participant must guess the correct sequence of a numbers required to open a safe containing the prize. Or casinos are now doing it where there's a sequence of lucky numbers or predetermined on a roulette wheel number, which seems pretty impossible, but has been achieved in the past. Rolling dice, card games, guessing games tend to be the basis of the chance wins, which are common in these competitions. You mentioned it earlier, envelope picks, where you have to, out of a whole batch of envelopes, pick 2 identical envelopes, and the prize is contained in that. Open it up, you can create quite nice hype with smaller prizes. And then product placements, where a consumer, for example, may win a prize by buying the lucky product with the predetermined winning number. And that is predetermined in a system, sits in a vault somewhere, and is opened afterwards if the lucky consumer buys that particular product. And I think also, it's all being online now, I think, and it's more relevant for the current times. We look at statistical based options where if someone downloads an app, they have like a 1 in 100 chance of winning a year's free membership, for example. And things we would need to know are the estimated number of new customers over the promotional period, and the fee for the app. What are the details on how the 1 in 100 draw takes place, built into some sort of random number generator. So those broadly are the sort of retail promotions that we're seeing. And many are indeed linked to large sporting events, like you mentioned, World Cup. Who would have thought that the Springboks were going to win, the Rugby World Cup? Obviously, it was brilliant. And as you say, we become a little bit, if we're insuring it, a little bit conflicted in our emotions. But it can happen. And they had a fantastic giveaway on sort of televisions and things. I mean, there's a great example in the States of a large retail furniture outlet who did a promotion way back in 2007 and gave away literally $30 million of furniture based on the Red Sox winning the World Series. The Red Sox, many years later, the 2013, repeated that feat, and the furniture manufacturer, retail outlet decided, well, let's see if these guys can do it again in 2014. And they then put up a huge limit of $50 million. And obviously they then, once they'd insured it out, were rooting for the Red Sox to win in that case. So lots of opportunities. I've been spoken to from a large golf retail outlet about a golfer winning a major. What are the chances? And if anyone buys a particular brand of equipment linked to the individual who wins the tournament, they would then refund all the golf equipment purchased during a particular period for that sort of thing. So lots of variations on this, and it makes it lots of fun and creative.
Absolutely. Thanks, Greg. And thanks, for running us through chapter and verse and all those options in prize indemnity. But you also mentioned bonus and performance, incentive bonuses and performance bonuses.
Yes.
What are these and how do they differ from prize indemnity?
Yeah, so they do. Obviously, an incentive is exactly that. It's a prize offered to an athlete who succeeds in breaking an existing record or, exceeding some kind of a standard that's been laid down for a particular sport or discipline in the past. I think the best known forms of this are they're designed to cover the possibility generally of a world record being broken during, say, for example, an athletics contest. Obviously the most recent one of this is the famous record-breaking attempt by Eliud Kipchoge's sub-2-hour attempt. And that was just made for fantastic viewing. I think we've actually got a little visual on that one. was just, I mean, just watching that again just brings back goosebumps, because I mean, I sat and watched all 2 hours of that, well, just under 2 hours, should we say. And that's, you know, the biggest milestone in long distance running literally since Sir Roger Bannister ran that first sub 4 minute mile back in the 1952 Olympics. So for him to run this was, you know, quite spectacular and really incredible. However, and this was the, you know, the however part, was it doesn't count as that world record. I mean, it's a record, obviously, that he ran it under the 2 hours, but he was obviously, as you can see in the background there, supported by a rotating team, and it was up to 41 pace setters. He followed a car that used lasers to indicate the best place to run on the road, which in itself was quite some engineering. And they had all sorts of other advantages not typically available in the marathon. And I think a little known fact, but incidentally, that course, they specifically chose it in Vienna, and specifically chosen because the incline throughout the entire route, I mean, and that's, you know, not just around the corner, was 2.4 meters from top to bottom. So, you know, obviously particularly flat. He had people giving him energy drinks every sort of 3.1 miles, I think it was. So there's lots of reasons why this didn't conform to the IAAF rules, and therefore not an official record. But yes, insurable nonetheless. And I know some of our partners were approached and considered this, but wisely didn't take it up. So, but incidentally and quite interestingly, he does hold the world record, I think, still from 2018 Berlin Marathon, which is 2:01:39. And they had a previous attempt, which Nike called their Nike's Breaking 2 project, back in 2017 on the Monza Grand Prix circuit in Italy. And they failed by just 25 seconds. So they knew they had the ability to do this, and they got it spot on and 100% right. And you can just see at the bottom of the shot there, his shoes. I mean, and those, they reckon, made all the difference, and the modern design on these new shoes, which are not incorporated yet into the official IAAF rules. So, yeah, I mean, I think, you know, interestingly, so this is obviously incentive-based stuff. You know, we know that athletes can push their bodies to limits that are not really even thought about in the past. And they have this obviously innate ability to self-motivate. But if they are rewarded as well, they can also break these existing records. And I think there's an extra adrenaline that goes through the psyche there. And, you know, the incentive bonus plays a big part in that, in perhaps breaking a South African record or even a world record. And we've seen some of this in our local events. I mean, we saw that take place in 2019 in our most famous ultramarathon. And the lady on the right, Gerda, was very fortunate enough to break the record, whereas the gentleman on the left didn't. And we, as you know, were involved in looking at that on both sides. And luckily we were on the right side of that one for this time. So, that's really incentive stuff. And then there's also performance stuff, which is generally linked to a longer period of time. So for example, if a sports team or an individual is given a defined period, say that league season, and the sponsor then promotes the idea of them achieving something. And that could be a world championship or a league, a championship, or a World Cup or a FA Cup, or whatever the case may be. They're incentivized on their performance to reach the top place in their rankings, and there's a requisite amount of money that gets paid on the basis of that, and that risk gets transferred across to us. So for you brokers out there, you may have some corporate clients who are involved in sports sponsorships. Talk to them about incentivizing this, and you can extend that, you know, that contribution in the incentive to the performance bonus for their sponsored individuals or teams. So that's a broader look at incentive and performance bonuses as well. All right, so maybe that's enough for me. So can I turn the tables on you again? Yeah, let me ask you this. So, have you seen, I mean, I know you've had some conversations a bit broader afield. What's happening globally in this type of insurance? Are there new trends?
Yeah, I don't know if they're new, but they've certainly been ramped up a bit, Greg, where it's really interesting how weather is used in sort of a parametric insurance, if you like, where you have certain thresholds of weather that act as triggers for a payout on a competition. So what we have through Tokyo Marine, who we partner with, is access to the super duper, that's a technical term, this really super duper weather tool that is just amazing. It's put together by a crowd called Athenium Analytics, and basically they get data from all over the world, which they then collate, and they've created this amazing repository of weather information that has both historical data as well as predictability in terms of being able to look at what the likely chances are of having a certain type of weather. And yeah, these are incorporated into promotions. So it gets really interesting where if you have certain amounts of snow or rain or a temperature that's reached, you could then have a payout, and they're often used in promotions. Obviously, snow is a much bigger deal overseas. I don't think we'd have too much interest if we did a possibility of snow in South Africa.
Although with all the bar fridges opening now, maybe
in certain parts of the country, you never know. So, for instance, just a good example where they kind of integrate the weather with the purchase, with the promotion, is they had a ski store, a ski retailer in the States that offered a refund of 50% on the ski equipment that was bought by their customers if they only had a certain amount, a low level amount of snow, and that was a specific threshold that they put there. So if there was just a very limited amount of snow, they could then get a refund on their purchase. Which is really cool, because then people kind of get interested not only in buying the equipment, but they get interested in the weather. It really creates a buzz. And then there's a nice tie in there between the weather, the driving of the sales, the competitive advantage that they have over other retailers, and a level of buyer comfort, because if you know that you're going to spend all this money on your ski equipment, but say you don't have the chance to use it because of the weather factor, you have a chance of a refund of 50% of your purchase price. So that's a really cool way of incorporating weather parametric triggers into a promotion and getting insurance protection for it. I mean, South Africa, just off the top of my head, we could do something around temperature. And yeah, you know, say you bought your beers or something, just as a fun example, and then the temperature went above 35 degrees, you could get a 50% refund on your purchase, or something along those lines. So there's really cool, innovative stuff that you can do around weather, which makes for a very interesting idea.
We can get to the macro queue.
Yes, along with everyone else, I believe, this morning. And thank you to everyone for actually being on our iTuesday here instead of standing in the queue waiting to buy your whiskey. Guess where I'm going when this is finished. Anyway, the other aspect, which is quite fun, which you've alluded to as well, is well, it's called an escape room concept. And basically how this works is, I don't know if you guys have ever been to an escape room, but it was a physical room where you would go in there as a group. It was sort of like a nice group or family activity. You would then solve a puzzle or a riddle, and then you could escape out of that room and go into another room or just get out. And now we're seeing quite a lot of this online and virtual. When you register to sort of participate, this is an actual promotion that was going on, to participate in this kind of virtual online escape room, you could have the opportunity to crack a code or crack the safe. And if you got the right sequence of numbers, then you had a chance to win. Or no, if you got the right sequence, then you won the $5,000 US. So that's quite a fun kind of concept where they're doing around probability, where you have to choose the right numbers in the right sequence, and you could potentially win the prize. And it just creates another avenue of interest for people who are registering online for whatever event it might be. And it can obviously be customized to be for any event. You could pick up on the theme, and then maybe it's not cracking a safe, it's some other way of choosing the right sequence of numbers for the online registration, which will make you eligible for a prize. It just adds a little bit of buzz to the online registration process and hopefully encourages people to participate. So yeah, I mean, those are sort of fairly interesting things that are going on. And then just to come to today, which also works on probabilities. And is quite a fun way of doing things. And, we've done this for iTuesday, but we could actually do it for any kind of webinar or sort of online presentation as a potential prize if your clients wanted to create some interest. And really what we've done is exactly that, is we worked on probabilities. What we had was a pre-selected time, which was 5 minutes over the 9 hours in which you could register. So there's 12 5-minute periods in an hour, which means there's 108 5-minute periods in the 9 hours that you could register. So your chances as a participant of winning is 1 divided by the 108, which is a 0.93 chance, say 1% chance of winning per participant. We worked on about 250 people, obviously depending, I'm not sure what our exact numbers are. So based on those probabilities, we kind of, from our side, had a chance of 2.5. I don't know if that's a particularly short person or whatever, but anyway, of getting it right. And those are kind of the probabilities that we potentially work with. We'd obviously, if we were rating this with the premium that Justin mentioned, which is a super cheap premium, that was a family discount, Justin, so we won't necessarily stick to that. But what we would do is put in a margin and sort of times it by a couple of factors, just so that we had enough fat in there in terms of our rating. And we know that anything can happen, and that's exactly why we have insurance. So yeah, that's kind of how we worked it out for this iTuesday session. As I say, it can be used in a number of ways for other webinars and online sessions if your clients are doing that kind of thing. And I think that's also the point here, guys, is that this is quite innovative, it's quite new, it can be a hell of a lot of fun. Ideally, what we'd like to do as iTOO is to work with you and with your clients and potentially the guys in the clients that actually come up with these ideas, their marketing department or their promotions department or whatever it might be, because that's often where you have that kind of creative spark that sits in the organization. And we'd love to be able to sit with you and with them. And I assure you it'll be a fun session where we kick around ideas in terms of what is possible in terms of their promotions and competitions, what is insurable, what we can or what we can't do, and then coming up with some ideas which I think could be really great in terms of an innovative concept that is insurable and that creates a whole lot of buzz around their products. So yeah, give us that opportunity. We'd love to do it. And yeah, I'm now going to hand over to Justin for the moment that you've all been waiting for while we've been blithering on, and that's to look at the results of today's competition. Thanks, Justin.
So thank you very much, Melita. Janine, can we have the next slide? I think that's got the times. So this was the time. So Janine, I'm going to ask you not to move to the next slide until you have my instruction. But this was the time that we'd randomly selected. And if anyone registered during this time, then you would have been down to win this 2 nights away for 2 people at Melita Lodge. So I hope you're all thinking and wondering, did you win and did you register at this time? So, and again, just before we announce it and go to the next slide, this is a great way. And for example, I'd like to say another thank you to Iconic Africa, the boutique travel agency that's put this together for us, Melita Lodge, the local grill, who's put forward a runner-up prize, and also to Great Domains, who have put forward some bottles of nice French champagne. And again, this is the time with COVID and trying to stimulate the economy and people to get back to work. If you have clients that are any one of these businesses, this is just a great example of how something small at a cost of 1,600 Rand can actually really create a lot of hype around stimulating business and a great marketing tool. So let's have a look at the next slide. Janine, if you can. Janine, can you get on to the next slide?
It's on, Justin.
It is up, Just.
It's there, Just.
And unfortunately, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah.
Great stuff. So unfortunately today, there wasn't a winner of the actual prize, but there were 2 people that were seriously close. So Julie De Silva, you missed it by 1 minute. 12:09 was the time that you registered. If you'd registered 1 minute later, you would be taking someone to Marataba Lodge. So Julie, because you were so close, we are giving you a bottle of really nice friendship champagne from Great Domains and a meal voucher for 2 people at the local grill in Parktown North. And Louise Stain, you will be winning a bottle of nice French champagne because you missed it by just 5 minutes. So unfortunately, no winner today. But what we will commit to do is we will roll this prize over to our next iTuesday, which is next Tuesday. So please look out for registration and register on Monday for the next iTuesday event. And we will do a similar thing. We won't use the same time slots, but we'll do a similar thing and we'll put the Marataba Game Lodge up for grabs for our next iTuesday. So well done to Julie and well done to Louise. You were very, very close. Julie, I'm sure you've been criticized for coming a little bit early every now and then before, and you missed it by 1 minute. So hopefully that you are going to register next Monday, and we will put the prize up again before our next iTuesday. I would like to then just open up the floor to a couple of questions to Greg and Melita. So Greg and Melita, we have had a few questions on the message group. So if you could look through those and let's have a couple of questions. So is there, Greg, can you see the questions? I'm struggling a little bit with my,
yeah, I can, I think I'm just scrolling down.
Melita, I'll read the first question out to you. I'd like to know.
Struggling a bit.
I'd like to know if it's possible. So I would like to know if this would be offered for rewards. So if a client is offering a reward to catch perpetrators.
Okay. Sorry, Tove, you're fading in and out.
So would this sort of cover be available as a reward to catch perpetrators?
I'm just trying to.
Sorry, I'm not sure I understand the question.
Okay, so I'll do the next one.
Won't you read it again?
If the client's business is gaming, so example, spin and win matches, machines, would you give cover?
Yes, that's potentially something we could look at. You do get even lotto derivatives that we could look to insure. We'd obviously check to our partners about that one. But yeah, those are typically pure probability. And it is something that we could look at depending on the nature of the prize and our appetite for the kind of value involved. But yes, typically you could have a back-to-back arrangement with some sort of gambling situation like lotto or the like.
Okay. And would this type of cover apply to game shows as well?
I don't see why not, as long as your underlying principles are the same and the underlying sort of features of the competition are the same. Would you agree, Greg?
Agreed. And I don't think it really matters the underlying format of whether it's, you know, as you say, a game show or not, so long as we can determine that the prize is adequately contested in terms of the rules that are applicable to the policy and the coverage that we give. You know, so are we happy with the limit? Are we happy with the verification? Are we happy with the way that it's been run and not manipulated in any way, shape or form? And ultimately, we can then transfer that risk across to us as the insurer.
Correct.
Cool. And if there's a dispute...
I see just we'll be losing you a little bit, so I'm just going to, I've managed to sort of, sorry, carry on.
Okay.
Toby?
If there's
otherwise, Greg, if you can see the questions,
I think let me do that because we're just losing
Toby's connection a little dicey.
It's just coming in and out. So Michelle Pringle asked, I see she said about a golfing event, which is really less of an insurance question, more of a sort of a golf royal and ancient type thing. And I
see
know
that you play golf all the time, Greg. You should be well qualified to answer this.
Exactly. So she was saying, you know, depending on a value, a high value, and a golfer wins a car, the golfer then accepts the prize. Would he or she then be declared a professional golfer? And there used to be a very strict rule about this. In fact, the limits were very low, and they've subsequently changed that. I'm not completely au fait with what those limits now are. However, if it were me and I won a £1 million car, I'd happily turn professional for that annual period, pay my membership fees to the PGA for the year, and be banned from all the amateur golf tournaments that come up. But you know, you have to look at it on its merits. So the short answer is, I think that would, you know, be in that professional category, and you would have to then subscribe to that. But, you know, you can then let that lapse in due course. I'll check into that and we can change it.
I think they've changed those rules quite a bit, and they've got a lot more relaxed about that kind of thing. I'm not sure that there is a threshold anymore. I know I attended a competition where someone won the hole-in-one, and then they said, okay, we're going to have a lucky draw. Everyone who's won the hole-in-one, we're going to put your name in the hat and we'll draw it out and you win the prize. So they got around, they got around it in a rather, underhand way. But anyway, I think they have relaxed a lot in terms of that. Typically, our hole-in-one prizes are not as high as that. We're probably looking at about 100,000 Rand to 200,000 Rand is more than enough, I think, to create that kind of buzz.
Yes. I think there's a question from CJ Dunn. Have you felt the impact with the cancellation of the big sporting athletics events because of COVID, which obviously is a little bit away from the topic? The very short answer to that is yes, and globally, massively. Particularly the large events that have been, you know, cancelled, and in many respects, although postponed, now cancelled. And, you know, nobody ever in their wildest imaginations anticipated a global shutdown of these large, iconic events. And I think that's what's caused all of the damage. But let's park that a little bit aside for the next events cancellation discussion, because it is off topic on that, in that respect.
Although obviously with the reduced ability to have sporting events and the like, Prize Indemnity has also taken a knock, not so much from claims obviously, but from new business flows.
All right, I think that's about it, Just.
You've covered all of the questions, so I would just like to say a couple of things. Firstly, well done to Greg, Melita, and Janine for putting together, I think, a really innovative and different presentation. I think this is the first time we've done Prize Indemnity to promote a webinar, and I'm sure we're going to be doing a lot more. A big well done and thank you to Judy De Silva and Louise Stein. Judy's from Kapara, our broker in Joburg, and Louise Stein is from Stevenson Insurance Brokers in East London. So well done to you, and we will get your prizes to you. And then lastly, and